Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. And this week's episode, we're delighted to be joined by an elite professional athlete and won a world champion. In fact, he's a ex 100 meter and 200 meter world champion. He's a former Olympian. He's known worldwide as the second fastest ever sprinter. He tied with Johan Blake. His personal best was 9.69. He's a veteran of the Olympics. We're talking about the one and only Tyson Gay. Tyson, first of all, delighted for you to be joining us today. Thanks for giving your time.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, man. I appreciate you giving me a call.
Yep. Tyson, I suppose 2016 was the last sort of Olympic Games, a sort of such, and you were part of that US team. And I suppose you were gearing up for this Olympics. Probably, as I said, I was speaking to Justin Gatlin earlier on, the same age as you, 38. This was probably going to be, I imagine, your last Olympics as well, dare I say. Being a 38 to try and make the US Olympic sort of team. What has been 2020 been like for you, first of all, when everything started in March and that sort of uncertainty, and now we're here in 2021 and that uncertainty still hasn't gone away?
It was a rough year. I think pretty much because the not knowing, it's pretty tough. And the fact that some athletes are able to train still, some athletes are not able to train because the facilities were shut down. So it was pretty tough, unfortunately. But at the same time, as an athlete, you just try to keep pushing and just hope for the best. But unfortunately, it was a lot worse than what we assumed it would be.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tyson, in terms of, we know the physical boundaries that you have to push yourself in terms of that 4-year cycle, preparing for an Olympic Games. But how has been the mental side of it in terms of the last year or so? Because you are an elite athlete, you probably have to cocoon yourself off from all forms of society, just in fear that obviously if you got this infection, what it would take out of your body and drain your systems, and might knock that maybe 10,000ths of a second off or something, because this COVID can still be in your body for 6 months after having it as well. So in terms of that, what has it been like mentally as well for you? Has it been exhausting?
Yes, mentally has been it's been a little bit stressful, especially for me. I mean, my age, I'm at 38 years of age, like you said earlier, and that was going to be my last Olympic trials, Olympic Games, whatever the outcome was going to be. I was ready for the results. So it was stressful for me because I'm like, I want to compete one more time. I want to see what it feels like to run fast. I want to give my all one more time for myself, my family, my fans. So it was a little stressful because the time's ticking for me. So if it does get canceled, it's just going to suck. But at the same time, as an athlete, we try to stay safe as possible. We try to protect our families, but we have to go into basically situation where COVID could be transferred to the weight room. All our exercise places we have to be, so we have to be around each other. So it's really pretty tough for us.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tyson, in terms of that, you can't social distancing in terms of running with teammates, especially 100 meters. It's not sort of possible given the sort of distance. So much of your sort of training and preparation, I imagine it's all on your own, testing yourself and sort of such, testing your own sort of times. But do you sort of feel that normally that presence on your shoulder, when it's not there anymore, is it sort of eerie in terms of how can you gauge where you're at in terms of your preparation? Not running.
Well, it's not that hard for me because it's been times in my career where I've trained by myself, so I'm used to that. So I don't necessarily have to have someone beside me to push, but it's good to have someone beside me during the fall. But really, I kind of know how to gauge myself based off of certain indicators in my 300s or my 250s or my longer runs. So it's really easy for me to gauge myself without having any stiff competition in training. So it's not that hard for me, but for others, pretty tough. And I didn't even get to see what it feels like to run with someone not next to you in the lane and someone in this lane and this lane. You know, they're trying to keep people separated. So, I mean, I think it's pretty difficult in all to just to do that, but at the same time, you know, safety first. But it's not that bad for me.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tyson, in terms of your competition as well, you just have to forget about it really, because there's no way of gauging, no way of knowing where they're at in terms of their sort of levels. Obviously, you have sprinters there that are around your same age. Just mentioned Justin, for example. But then you have sprinters like Noah Lyles and Christian Coleman, who are in their early sort of 20s as well. So there's no way of gauging where they're at, where your competition is. So in terms of this sort of Olympics, it's very much going in blind. I suppose US trials as well, if they do happen, I suppose there will be no sort of lead up or build up time for that. It's just on the day, I suppose, and every athlete is going in blind, so there will be casualties.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that they will have some local track meets, and maybe doing some time trials and training can give you some indicators. But other than that, it'll be pretty blind. You're not really gonna know a lot of what's going on. I don't even know if they're still gonna have world relays and things like that. I don't know if anything's gonna get canceled, if they're gonna have the meets. It's pretty much up in the air right now. So they're doing the best they can to have some meets indoors. So I think they're just going to try to follow that schedule and see how things play out.
And I suppose Tyson, as an elite professional, is given maybe 15 years at this stage to sort of your craft and honing it in terms of that sort of cycle. Do you feel that the governing bodies, in terms of the Athletic Association, as a top action, they're keeping you formed on a step-by-step basis? Do you like to see what's going on, or do you like to shut yourself off from that and see what will be? Is it sort of mentally, is it exhausting, sort of draining, seeing what's going on, or just try and say what will be and push that aside, or do you like to be kept in the loop?
Yeah, sorry, my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, my phone. Someone's trying to call, but I like to zone out. Personally, I like to zone out and not really focus on what's going on. And if I hear something, I hear it. If I don't, I don't. So I feel like some of if they say I was going to be canceled, not going to be canceled, I feel like it kind of it throws off your training a little bit. You know what I'm saying? The intensity may not be there as much because you think it's not going to be there. So I'd rather not hear what's going on so I can still give it my best and just train hard as I can. And whatever the outcome is, it is.
And I suppose, Tyson, in terms of COVID, and I know we know the global situation, and the health is most important for people, and sports comes second in that sort of sense. But has it really, the year, what has been, has it really sort of dampened your hunger? Do you still have that hunger as an experienced veteran? Has it made you appreciate it much more now in terms of what might be taken away from you as sort of such? Does it make that sort of fire to determined to be there for that one last go at it?
Yeah, it does. Like you say, the COVID, I feel like with what's going on with the virus, it does kind of dampen the situation, and it does make you miss track and field more. So even when you watch on TV or you don't have any fans, or just seeing it, it gets you excited again. But it puts a damper on it because you love to have the fans there because that's what gives you that extra energy, that extra boost to keep going. But it definitely makes you miss the sport, man. And a lot of people take it for granted, not knowing when it's going to be their last race. And when it's your last race, there's nothing you can do about it. When you got to hang them up, you're always going to wonder what it could have, should have. So, unfortunately, I hope it clears up, but only time will tell.
And Tyson, just out of curiosity, when was your last official sort of race that you raced in? Was it back in March 2020? Have you ever been so long out without?
Yeah, I ran a 4x1 in Gainesville, I think last year sometime. I can't remember exactly the date, maybe in April, maybe somewhere around there. I think that was like my last race, maybe in Claremont. I didn't really run a good race. A little bit overweight, had a lot of stresses on myself, but that's why I don't want to end like that. I want to end my career running a good time and giving it my best and not just half-assing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tyson, in terms of diet, in terms of nutrition, obviously with COVID, and in terms of trying to keep yourself athletes and body density, in terms of that is, and I suppose we all, like myself, we're all getting older, and it's probably that much harder when you're in sort of your 20s and you're sort of lean, sort of peak, sort of shape in terms of your
Mhm.
body metabolism. You can sort of burn it off quicker. How are you sort of finding that element? Is it more, is it a struggle these days?
Uh, it's harder because at my age now, I've realized my cheat days, they kind of take me out a little bit longer than they normally do. I used to be able to eat my pizza on the weekends and be good by Monday, but now it takes me a week to run that pizza off now. So it's definitely slowed down a little bit. So well, last year I've started working with a nutritionist. So now that I have a nutritionist and I have my meals planned out, I know what I'm eating. I know how many calories I'm consuming. I know what I'm burning. That's been better for me at this age, actually seeing what I'm eating and knowing what foods to eat. So it's been helping me at this point.
And I know the world governing athletic bodies, it does try and keep its athletes informed and everything was going on. But did you feel a bit disappointed by Tokyo themselves, and given how late they were telling it was going ahead, it's going ahead, and then the minute they got the word that it wouldn't be going ahead, obviously they revealed what it was like over in Japan, and it was very bad in terms of COVID. They were keeping it close guarded, sort of secret, just to have the Olympics. Do you sort of feel, obviously the athletics commission was fully behind this athletes, but the organizer of the event, do you feel that you should have been informed earlier to the situation, leaving you to the last minute, not knowing whether it was going to go ahead
No,
or not?
not for me, man. I didn't really get into that. I understand politics, I understand business, and I understand it's timing for everything. So I didn't really get involved in that and getting upset because I just feel like safety's first, regardless if they didn't tell us early or tell us late. It's all about people's health first and foremost. So whatever they do, I just hope that they do everything right so people can be safe and carry on.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tyson, we're coming now to the penultimate sort of questions there for you. In terms of those US trials, they've been given a date, June the 18th to June the 27th, sort of 2021. If that goes ahead, then you probably, it's a possibility, if there is Olympics, you're talking early autumn. That's no sooner US trials over than you're on a sort of a plane to sort of Tokyo. So it's going to be very chaotic. It's going to be very sort of sandwiched from the minute you start. If you are successful making the US team, it's going to be helter skelter in all
Mhm.
in the space of a month. So it's going to come thick and fast, really, if it does go ahead.
I agree. That's why I think it's important for us to figure out what's going to go on. So if they can let us know early, it'll be good. But at the same time, I think USA trials will go on even if the Olympics are canceled. I think they will still have the trials. Um, and I think the Olympics are going to go on. I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, if things keep spiking up, obviously it's going to have some safety precaution. But I definitely think it's going to be chaotic, especially with the vaccine now. And I've seen the news. They're saying there are other strands of the virus out now. So it's going to be difficult, I think, to handle. But as long as they have the professionals in the right place to make sure everything is safe, I think they may be able to accomplish something.
I was speaking to Justin, and he was proposing that obviously that the Olympics is sort of international event. It doesn't mean, in his eyes, that every event needs to be held in sort of Japan. That it could be moved. We've seen the bubble type system in the sort of NBA, and maybe sprinting and maybe the short distance could be held somewhere in a different part of the world, and all sorts of events. And sort of 100, 200 meters, 400 meters, and 800 a short distance run, and all those athletes in one area, and just those
Mm-hmm.
athletes alone. Is that something that you sort of buy into, that sort of notion as well? This sort of or do you feel the Olympics? It's Olympics. All the sports should be within that sort of country. Everything should be competing within that sort of area,
I mean,
given its history.
given its history, yeah, but unfortunately, that may not be possible. I mean, it's a lot of people that's going to be there, and I don't know how they're going to do social distancing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
The Olympics experience alone is a beautiful thing, and everyone mingles together. Everyone's in the cafeteria eating. Everyone's hanging around each other, having a good old time. So that's going to be different. You have opening ceremony. You have so much stuff that will probably just have to be canceled out. So everything may have to be in different places. I don't know, but I don't know if it's too late to even do that because you only have about 7 months. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's too late or not, but it's going to be interesting what they decide to do.
And I suppose, Tyson, I suppose lastly for me to you, you're probably going to look at if the Olympics goes ahead. We all know the 100 meters is a showpiece of the Olympic Games. It's where the fastest times are set in terms of the fastest men in the world. It's sort of world records. It's what people remember. That everyone remembers Usain sort of Bolt's runs. We remember Maurice Green. We remember Michael Johnson's runs in 200 sort of meters. Obviously, when they were running, there was probably 100,000 packed into the stadium for that 100-meter final.
Right,
You could probably not hear the breath of your opponent in the lane beside you breathing. You probably couldn't even hear it. It'd be so drowned out with the noise. Now you're probably it's a showpiece of the athletes. There's probably going to be absolutely no one in the stadium. You're probably going to hear the grinding of the person's boot in the track beside you, sort of such. That extra sort of motivation, that extra
right,
10 hundredths of second you will get out of the crowd. That's all
right.
going to be gone. How do you legislate for that? How do you start to train for that? It's a lot, very much like a boxer in terms of they start to feed off the sort of crowd, those world class boxing fights. They're boxing with no crowds. Is that the sort of expertise you need as an athlete? This is probably the first time
Yeah,
you've ever experienced that. You need someone's.
yeah. I believe if that's the case, if that happens, I believe experience will come to the top. You know, a lot of people whose first time going to the Olympics, they want that experience of all the people, their family there, and the lights, the cameras, everything. But if that doesn't happen, I believe the people who have experience will rise to the top. Because you've already had it tough. But handle that type of pressure is one thing, but to be able to handle without a crowd, it should be easier. So I think it'll be a mental game a little bit. So you have to find a balance and just kind of go from there.
And Tyson Gay, lastly for me, just one sort of question. I suppose you have been a double world champion in the 100 meters and the 200 meters. And let's say we all hope that the Olympics does go ahead. But if it doesn't go ahead, will you be able to sort of find peace with that in terms of that 2016 might have been your last Olympic Games? Are you sort of content with that sort of notion? Or do you feel that, yeah, you have unfinished business?
Yeah, I'll be content with it. For the simple fact, if unfortunately for health purposes, they don't have it. But at the end of the day, I'll be content. I'll just move on to the next part of my life, and that'll be helping the next person become an Olympian. And I'll do my best to see if I can to create an Olympian. That would be my goal. And because it's a beautiful experience, and for athletes to experience that, that's one in a lifetime. And if I can help someone.
Yeah, Tyson Gay, an absolute pleasure for me, Jim Conlan, talking to you this evening on our episode in terms of looking ahead in terms of the preparation for the Olympic Games. We do hope it's an Olympic Games, Tyson. We do hope you're there, wherever that may be. But for the moment, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully, please God, we'll see you one more time and the biggest showpiece in the world in terms of the Olympic Games. Tyson Gay,
All
pleasure.
right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Peace.
Cheers.
All right.